All right, so now we go to Houston, where flooding is just wreaking havoc. I was on the phone most of the weekend with my family. I got a lot of friends there. I grew up there, and so I'm seeing all of these places I know quite well that are underwater at the moment. 119,000 places covered by flood insurance policies backed by the National Flood Insurance Program. That'll help. That helps fund most flood insurance policies. There are just over 800,000 occupied housing units in that city. That means somewhere under a sixth of all homes in that city have flood insurance. Loy Vickers joins us, an insurance adjuster and property insurance expert on Trending Today USA. Loy, thank you for coming on.
Hi, Ernie. How are you today?
I'm very well. I'm concerned because I know a lot of people, they think their homeowner's insurance will cover flooding, but it doesn't necessarily do that.
No, sir, it does not. As a matter of fact, most homeowners' policies specifically exclude flooding, earthquake, those type of events, because those are separate policy coverages and are sold separately. So if you haven't bought a separate policy for that, typically you're not going to have that coverage.
What are people going to do when they find out that nasty little surprise?
Well, that does present an interesting problem. You know, by all accounts, this storm that we've actually had here is one of, most unique nature, because most building departments basically design their builds around a 100-year storm, and this could be possibly a 500-year storm type event. So that means that it's 4 times normal than what they actually planned for. And so with that being said, there's going to be a lot of people caught in this policy melee where they don't have coverage, and they're going to have problems trying to get their house put back together.
What do they do in a case like that? What do I do if I call my homeowner's policy and they say, oh, yeah, you're not covered for this, and I'm sitting here looking at my flooded out house? What value does my house have, and what does my homeowner policy, what is it going to cover in a circumstance like that?
Right. Well, and to be honest with you, I mean, you need to look at that really closely. But typically, a flood is water that runs across the surface of the ground. So if water came up from the street and into your house and you don't have flood insurance, that presents a real problem. Now, the government, through FEMA and SBA loans, have developed some programs to help folks try to get their houses put back together. But that's exactly what it is. It's basically a loan, and that means you're kind of stuck. So, it's unfortunate that you didn't have flood insurance, and even if you tried to buy flood insurance in the last couple of days, it wouldn't have been in effect for this storm anyway. So you really would have been at a disadvantage.
If I take out this loan to help me rebuild the house, I still have my mortgage, and now I have the loan. It could be of equal amount. So now, in essence, I have 2 mortgage payments.
That's correct. That's very possible.
Yeah. I don't know how many people are going to have that kind of money laying around the house. That's one of the reasons I'm so concerned about what's going to come of this, because I'll guarantee you there are a lot of people who think their homeowner policy covers this.
That's correct. And to be honest with you, Ernie, I've been doing this since 1989, mm-hmm. and at first I was actually an agent. And historically, people would buy policies, and they would say, Ernie, I want you to sell me a policy. I want a $500 deductible, and I want it based on X number of dollars the value of the house, and that's it. They don't bother to read the policy. They come home, they stick it in a drawer, and by not actually reviewing what coverage they have, it puts them at a real disadvantage. And like most people, they don't do that. I mean, I don't know anybody that will sit down and tell you, oh, yeah, I read my policy all the time. They just don't. And in reality, here in Texas, and I know you're in, Arizona right now?
Yeah.
In Texas, the policies have been changing over the last years at a record rate. And so what used to be a $500 deductible, $1,000 deductible, has now become a percentage deductible. And, I've seen them 2, 3, up to 5%. And when you've got a $300,000 house and now you've got a $15,000 deductible, you're still at a disadvantage. So my advice is to always read your policy and know what's in it. But more importantly than that is it's also your responsibility to put the insurance claim in the hands of the insurance company.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean it's your responsibility to do that. And if you can't do that, then they send their people out. And, of course, they actually don't work for you. That's an unfortunate thing. But in reality, they don't. They work for the insurance company. And so there's always going to be a disadvantage. But you have the ability to hire your own adjuster, like myself. I'm actually a public insurance adjuster, and I work directly for the property owner, not the insurance company. And so the whole idea here is to make sure you're compensated for everything that's due you under the policy, nothing more, nothing less. And, if we can do that, then you can get your house put back together.
Loy Vickers is with us. You'll find him at empirepublicadjusters.com. Loy, I'm curious about this because when a major catastrophe happens, obviously, let's just say everybody had flood insurance in Houston right now, and it happens to be one or two or three companies that are selling flood insurance. They're going to be facing billions of dollars in claims. How does a company survive something like that? Because the idea of a life insurance policy is they know not everybody's going to die on the same day. Right.
And that's an unfortunate thing because in reality, you're going to have this massive amount of claims, and it's going to cause problems not just for the policyholder, but for the insurance company, for the cities, for everybody involved in this, because there's a shortage of everything. You've got a shortage of food, you've got a shortage of material. You got a shortage of adjusters. You just can't get to everybody in a short period of time. And in the case of Houston, we're still waiting for the storms to quit so the water will recede before you can even get in there.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things going on here that's going to be a problem. And so I would recommend to the people and I know it's kind of a little crazy, but you got to be a little patient because it's going to take a little time to get people in where they can get to you and get services to get to you. But once that happens, then the process of rebuilding and putting your life back together can happen pretty quickly.
I remember the Joplin tornado from 2011, and I haven't been to Joplin, and I will occasionally Google Earth to see how the progress is coming along as they rebuild that city. And here we are, 6 years later, and they've done remarkable things, but it's just simply not the same as it was. If you go back and look at the historical pictures versus what it is now, that tornado has changed the face of that city, and so I would imagine this is going to change the face of Houston.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I was actually up there in that event as well, and it basically cut a huge notch right out of the middle of the city.
Yeah.
And I would venture to say that, in a hurricane, it's not quite as bad as it is during a tornado. Tornadoes are more locally contained, but that one in Joplin was huge.
Yeah.
In a hurricane, it's more widespread, so you have a lot more wind covering a lot more area. When we were in Florida, going over to the west side of Florida after one of the hurricanes hit, I remember going across this area, and all the palm trees were snapped off about 10 feet up.
Yeah.
And that's because that hurricane was so strong, it just broke everything. So you're right. I was in Louisiana last week trying to help some people finish up with a flood claim that happened last year in August, and some of those people have been able to get their houses put back together, and here we are a year out, and some of them haven't even gotten started yet. And so, you're going to have to be a little patient. It's going to take a little bit of time to get this done. And if you need help, people like us are out there able to help you through this process. And, there's a lot of other folks like me. You can find them at the Texas Association of Public Insurance Adjusters website that can actually help you move through this process.
Is it better to come, Loy, is it better to come to somebody like you, an independent, as opposed to going through the insurance company?
Well, actually, I'm not an independent. I'm a public insurance adjuster.
Well, that's what I mean. I'm sorry, public.
Yeah, what that means is I work directly for them, not the insurance company.
Gotcha.
And so, the reality is if you don't think you're being treated fairly, then you do need to get somebody like us. And we're not, we don't necessarily need to be involved in every single claim, but the sooner that we get involved, the easier it is for us to help you through that process.
All right, shedding a little light on the mysterious business known as insurance, Loy Vickers. You'll find him at empirepublicadjusters.com. Loy, thanks for calling. I appreciate it. I know you have some busy times coming up. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Ernie. Appreciate it.